press record. Brilliant. So yeah, welcome everyone to this is a funding information event for our second call of Wave 6, which is opening today. So that call will open at 12 o'clock today. I'm Bryony Jeston. I'm the project manager for the Skills Bootcamps Programme at the West of England. And I'm joined by my colleague, Sherry Humphreys, who's our Employer Engagement Officer, who I know many of you have spoken to. So I'll just take you through the agenda for this session. Okay, so a lot of this for you, anyone who's been to these events before, a lot of this is kind of repeated from the last session, but it's really important we share this all with you. So yeah, we'll talk around sort of the objectives of Wave 6 and the Skills Bootcamp Programme. We'll go over what kind of the model looks like for Skills Bootcamps. You'll understand about the learner eligibility. We'll explain how we will pay you. So if you are successful and you're offered a grant to deliver, we'll explain how you'll be paid and when. We'll talk around the support we do for quality assurance and Ofsted readiness. I will then share with you what the call to offer looks like. Yeah, and talk briefly around the sort of application paperwork that will be going onto a website that you'll need to complete to apply. We'll wrap up with a few sort of key takeaways, things to kind of remember when you're completing your application. And I'll share with you sort of what that provisional timeline looks like for when you'll receive, so when you'll need to get your applications in and when you'll hear from us about whether you've been successful. And like I said, at the end, there'll be a question and answer session. But if you could just pop questions into the chat as we go through, and then we'll address them all at the end. Any questions will be published on our website and any answers we give, so they're open for everyone to see. Okay. So the objectives of the Skills Bootcamps Programme. So it's all about, Skills Bootcamps are all about addressing the needs of employers in our region and the wider economy. And they deliver very targeted interventions that are aimed at meeting short to medium term skills demands we have. So unlike traditional courses, Skills Bootcamps not only deliver the training to the learner, they also deliver kind of the wraparound support and for a period in order to support that individual on the course to move into a new job using the skills gained, or to enhance the job they already have with their organisation, or to take on new responsibilities in their organisation, or for those that are self-employed or freelance in order to obtain new work contracts, or to perhaps enhance the work contract they already have with an organisation. One of the key things with Skills Bootcamps is they're a maximum of 16 weeks in duration, so they can't be any longer than that when you're designing them. There needs to be a minimum of 60 guided learning hours, so that's kind of contact hours that the learner has with a tutor or mentor. Those hours can be delivered remotely, but it's just making sure it's with somebody, and things like kind of on-the-job training can count as well, as long as it's structured. But yeah, it's just something to be aware of. They do need to be 60 guided hours. It says there about 20 hours for practical driving courses, but we haven't got any of those in this call today. Skills Bootcamps are for adults aged 19 plus. And, at programme level, they are open to individuals that's kind of self-employed, employed, returning to work. So yeah, they're open to all, but when we do get onto the actual specifics of the lots, you will notice that they are we have kind of drilled down into what learner types we're looking for that lot. So even though at a programme level it's open to everyone, when you read the specification in the application paperwork, you'll need to be careful what kind of learners we're looking for you to target with that lot that you're applying under. And something really key is that Skills Bootcamps do have to be flexible. So when you're designing them, you're thinking about how they can be flexible to work around people's existing commitments. A lot of the individuals on these courses, they will already be working. You'll have employers using the Skills Bootcamps to upskill their staff. So it's really thinking about how can you deliver that flexibly so people can continue to work, yeah, attend the training, and things like, yeah, blended approaches work really well, you know, online with, you know, face-to-face where it's suitable. They can be it can be totally online if that's the right, you know, if you can justify that's right for the learner and they can obviously achieve the outcomes. But yeah, really looking for that flexibility. So the Skills Bootcamp models you can look at. So if you're an employer on this call today, you could apply yourselves for the funding to deliver the training yourself in-house if you have that kind of capacity, that training capacity within your own company to deliver to your staff yourselves. Or you could be a training provider on the call and you're looking to deliver a bespoke solution for an employer in the region. So you're working directly with one employer to develop a programme that works for their upskilling their staff they have in their organisation. Or you may be working with a number of different employers to sort of develop you know, slightly bespoke courses for each of them. Or you could be a training provider developing a more sort of generic course that you're going to open up to various employees. So employers can put like one person onto it, plus, you know, members of the public can join. That's absolutely fine, as long as they are still designed in collaboration with employers in the region. So, you know, we really understand. So you're building a curriculum that aligns with the employer's need. So it's quite flexible in terms of the models there, but, you know, employers are, throughout this, they're involved, they're engaged, you know, you've built your curriculum based on what the employers need and you're working with them. As I mentioned before, the specification, or what we call the application document, which I will show you later, and that will be on our website later, that will define the allowable learner types. So as I said, programme level, open to all types of learners. At a lot level, you'll be looking to see which learner types we can support through that. So there are some that are restricted just to sort of those upskilling with their own employer or to self-employed. So yeah, do read that thoroughly when you get that paperwork later on. Skills bootcamps are free to learners, so that's something to always remember. Yeah, the learner themselves will never pay for the bootcamp. However, where an employer is using the Skills Bootcamp to upskill their own staff, there is a contribution that they need to pay, and that is 10% if they're an SME or 30% if they're a large organisation, and that's 10% or 30% of the cost per learner. We get quite a few questions around, can a different employer pay that contribution on behalf of that employer? Yes, that's absolutely fine. If that's the arrangement that's in place, that's no problem. But we'll need to see evidence that has been paid. Okay, next, Sherry. Okay, so unlike some of our funding streams, we do say the learner themselves can actually live outside of the area as long as they are enrolling on the bootcamp with the intention to work in our region. So this is it, and for the Skills Bootcamps programme, it's the LEP geographical area that we're considering here. So that includes North Somerset, so South Gloucestershire, Bath and North East Somerset, Bristol and North Somerset. So yeah, just to explain again, yeah, the actual learner themselves can live outside of the area as long as they're, you know, you're confident and that they're doing the training because they want to come and work here. And we obviously will, you know, we need to be reasonable about where they live. Or you could be working with an employer based in our region who wants to upskill their staff through the Skills Bootcamps. That's absolutely fine if some of those learners live outside the region. That's not a problem because they're already working here. As we mentioned before, it's for adults aged 19 or over. There's a bit of a rule there around when the course starts and at what point you work out they're 19, but all of that will be in the paperwork, so don't worry about too much about that. Learners must have the right to work in the UK. They must meet residency requirements, and you shouldn't actively recruit learners that live outside England, although there are occasions where that is appropriate if the skills provision isn't offered and it's in that area, and actually, sort of actually working in Bristol, it makes sense from where they live. Working just over the border is absolutely fine. So yeah, it's just not actively recruiting. So moving on to how we pay you. So if you were successful and you receive a grant offer from us, we will pay you in milestones. So it is effectively based on achievements. So your first payment you will receive is for 40% of the cost per learner. And you'll receive that when a learner has completed 14 qualifying days on the Skills Bootcamp and has received a minimum of 10 guided learning hours. 14 days you count from day one. They don't have to have attended 14 sessions or anything like that. You just do day one of your course, count 14 days. And if they're still on the course, they haven't dropped out, and they've had 10 guided learning hours, then you can claim your first payment of 40%. The second payment of 30% we will pay you when a learner completes the Skills Bootcamp. Important thing with Skills Bootcamp is they're not classed as having completed it until they've received either an offer of an interview, if that's relevant, if it's somebody who's enrolling to get a new job, or equivalent would be for a self-employed person, it would be that you've worked with them to develop a self-employment action plan or business plan, or for those upskilling through their own organisation, it would be the offer of a new responsibility or an enhanced role within their organisation. So yeah, it's just something to be aware of. Completion for a boot camp is not just finishing the training, it's we've finished the training and they've also had the offer of an interview or offer of a new or enhanced responsibility of their company, or like I said, for the self-employed, we'd just be looking there for sort of evidence that you've worked with them on an action plan. And that third and final payment of 30% of the cost per learner is paid when the learner achieves a successful outcome. So this is when they progress, so they get an offer of a new job, or or they now have taken on those new responsibilities in their company, or for the self-employed, they now have secured a new work contract or enhancement to their contract. Just something else to note on the payment side, something's different for Wave 6. We now have data now that needs to be entered through the ILR, the Individualised Learner Record, which some of you will already be familiar with, some of you won't be. We will very much support you with that though. So if you are successful, we will, we're developing training material, we will train you on how to use the ILR to submit your learner data to us. And the way we pay once we've sort of had that, validated that data and any supporting evidence that we've asked you for. So quality assurance and Ofsted. So for Skills Bootcamps, providers are inspected by Ofsted using the evaluation criteria in the Further Education and Skills Inspection Handbook. So broadly, Ofsted are looking at, will inspect you on intent, implementation and the impact of Skills Bootcamps. So new providers will receive an Ofsted monitoring visit within 18 months of starting delivery. It's nothing to worry about at all. We've had many new providers come through in the last couple of years, really small training companies, employers doing the training themselves, who've been through this process, and they found, we've had no issues at all. We're here to support you very much. So we do have a dedicated quality assurance officer that will, if you are new to this, will work with you. We have templates, we can, support you in whatever you need in that. So yeah, really nothing to, and I think most training providers have found it a fairly positive experience to date. So that's really good. So it says that about the DFE, they can visit our providers to look at the provision. They don't tend to so much anymore. So it'll mainly be sort of that Ofsted monitoring visit and the visits that we do ourselves. And the kind of things that we're doing is, if we do come out to you, it is absolutely totally in a supportive way. We will we may do similar observations that you may get in Ofsted, but almost like in a mock way, just to kind of like, feedback in any areas that you may be able to improve on, as well as sort of a visit each year. We do regular progress meetings with you. So you'll be allocated a relationship officer that will meet with you minimum sort of monthly. That can change depending on how you're doing. I'm very much there to support you with whatever you need. And as I said, we have templates of all sorts of things that we can share with you to help you setting up your programme. We have done some sort of forums before for new providers to come together. So we are going to be looking at doing more of that into wave 6 and trying to encourage people to kind of connect with one another. So the important bit, so so the call to offer, so we're opening for applications today in, I think it's 4 different lots. So the first area is around advanced engineering and manufacturing, and this lot will all be around upskilling the workforce. So those learners will either be enrolling via their employer or they're self-employed individuals. So there will be people kind of already in the industry, but where we need to kind of be upskilling them. This is really open, this lot, for you to tell us what's needed. You know, there'll be a few things listed: welding, fabrication, electrical engineering, health and safety. I mean, it is very much open, that one, to kind of for you to apply, and, you know, from the evidence that you've got of where those skill needs are and what the employers are telling you. There's a maximum cost per learner on that lot of £4,000, and we have 200,000 available to apply for. The next lot is linked to our construction sector, and this is a skills bootcamp that will act as a pathway into an accelerated apprenticeship. Obviously, noting that these are adults aged 19 plus, so it's kind of thinking about what those apprenticeship opportunities may look like for those adults. We've recognised these kind of like skills bootcamps that sit before an apprenticeship are really useful, as it gives people those kind of confidence in order to move onto the apprenticeship. The learners also then getting like that support from the training provider to find that right employer for them, and it really benefits the employer because the apprenticeship itself is then accelerated. So the pathway to accelerated skills bootcamp, it can focus on skills and behaviours of a specific pathway, for example, plant operatives, electricians, quantity surveyors. So you could go down that route, or it could be something where it has sort of skills and behaviours that are shared across apprenticeships, so that it's kind of a bit more open then into what apprenticeship that individual may move into. There's £4,000 as a maximum cost per learner from that one, and there's £280,000 available to apply for. And the next lot again is around construction, and this is a bit like the manufacturing engineering one. This is around kind of upskilling people who are already working in that profession. So again, this is really broad. You can, you know, tell us through your bids what it is employers need. There's a few things listed in there that are coming through, sort of site management, site supervision, health and safety, rigging, also, you know, plant training around sort of plant equipment. So again, very open. There's maximum cost on that one of £4,000 again, and £432,000 available. And the last lot for call 2 is something new for wave 6, and we will be supporting our visitor economy in the west of England. So we have £360,000 available, maximum cost of £4,000. And again, this is really open, this one. So it could be in areas such as kind of customer service training or event management training that supports the visitor economy here in the region. You could look at cultural and international visitor training, training around sort of how organisations here who are supporting visitor economy can be more inclusive and create a better experience for everybody visiting. You may look at sort of tour guide training and things like that, or anything around hospitality to support the visitor economy. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, there's so when you go onto our website, and this will hopefully on there by, we were hoping for 12 noon, but unfortunately had a few technical issues today with some of the connectivity at the west of England. So maybe the web page isn't going to be updated as early as we hope for today, but we're hoping it will be on there by the end of the day at 5 o'clock. If for any reason it isn't on there, we will send out a mailing to everyone to let you know. But by 5 p.m. today, you should be able to go onto our website, and for those 4 lots I've just talked about, you'll see they'll be listed on there, and the application paperwork will be there on the page for you to start completing. The main document is the application document. There is one for each lot. And in this document, when you go through it, it will explain the project requirements for that lot. And they are specific to that lot. So please do read it thoroughly. Again, it will explain the funding rules for that lot. So again, these are specific. So do read that. It will tell you how much funding is available, the maximum cost per learner, which we talked about earlier, the allowable learner types, which I've touched on a couple of times. It will recap over like learner eligibility and go a bit more detail than I've given you today. And it was around other rules such as charging, payments, curriculum planning. So yeah, do read project requirements, funding rules, read them really thoroughly before you start completing your application. At the back of that document is the application form itself. It will explain to you the instructions for completing it. It will explain to you the evaluation criteria that we use. So once your bids come in, what is the process we go through to make sure it's fair and that we're allocating it to the, in a fair way. It has got in there some gateway criteria questions. So before you get on to the main quality questions, there's sort of criteria questions that you have to meet. I'm sure most of you will. So yeah, do read through those thoroughly. You need to kind of tick that box to say that you've met all of those. And then the form moves into those specific quality questions. And we'll be asking you questions around project planning. You'll be asked to explain how your project is value for money. Alongside that value for money section, it will link you to an appendix, which is like a financial spreadsheet that you'll fill in for us, and it will show us how you've come to that cost per learner that you're asking for. So it'll ask you to break down the costs of delivering your project, how many learners that you're looking to enroll, and how that equates to that cost per learner. You'll be asked, and there's a quality question all around employer engagement. So as I said, that's really, really key. We do expect there to be employer engagement, as part of your bid. So employers can get involved in various ways. We expect you to, when you're developing your curriculum, we expect you to be working with employers to get their kind of input. We would like employers to be involved in the training themselves, to come in to do workshops and things like that. We need employers that obviously put their own learners onto the course to upskill them. And we also need employers that will kind of commit to offering interviews to these learners. There'll be a question all around learner enrolment. So how will you market to the demographic that you've defined? And how will you support learners that perhaps where the course isn't right for them, to ensure they do get that information and guidance they need? How will you support learners throughout their bootcamp, and how will you support learners that are unsuccessful? You'll be asked around learner progression. That's obviously really key. How will you ensure? So it's not just about delivering the training. We need to make sure that these learners do achieve a successful progression, so they are, offered a job role. Some may not be successful at the first interview. So what are you going to do to kind of further support people that are unsuccessful? Or how are you going to support those employers to make sure that they have the right, these new responsibilities for these individuals within the organisation that they can take on after completing the training? Quality of provision, really important. So we'll ask you about how you ensure that the teaching and learning you're delivering is of a high standard, and what are those quality checks you do. In there this year, there's a specific question around social value. This is, you do read this, it's very specific this year about supporting work we need to do to offer young people in our region experiences of the workplace. Do read that. So what we're looking for is for providers that we're working with, employers, to commit to helping our young people get those experiences of the workplace. We'll be asking around work experience opportunities you may be able to offer, either yourselves or within your kind of network of employers that you work with, or, one day opportunities that you can, for like a group of students. So do read that, and that is part of a kind of wider piece we're doing at the moment to support our young people. So as well as the application document, which is the main document, when you go onto our webpage, you'll also see 4 appendices. They are referenced in the application document, so don't worry, it will talk through how you need to fill in the application document, plus these 4 appendices. So the first one is what I briefly mentioned, the financial annex. So when you're doing your value for money question, you'll also be filling in around your financials and your costings. Due diligence form, you will need to fill in and submit, so we can do kind of due diligence checks. And there is a request in there around kind of copies of accounts. So do read that thoroughly and send in anything asked for on the due diligence form. We ask for a scheme of work, so that's sort of like your curriculum plan. We do obviously understand that that can evolve afterwards, but it's really sort of we just want a kind of a high level outline of what that could look like. So if it's a 12-week course, what will you be covering off? And obviously we recognise that will further develop once you receive the funding. And there's an employer letter of support template. So it's a bit different this year. We used to just say, just go out and get your own employer letters of support, but often they were quite high level or broad, or weren't very specific to our region and things like that. So we're hoping the template will work and help kind of really drive out that information we're looking for. So you will need to get one of those filled out for each employer that's supporting your application. Yeah, so as I said, the application document and the appendices that you'll need to apply will be available by 5 o'clock today on our website, hopefully earlier than that. And as I said, if we still have technical issues later today, we will make sure we keep you updated on what's happening with it. And yeah, do read the application document thoroughly before filling in your application. Right, key takeaways, just to recap on a few things. Remember, when you're writing your bids, that Skills Bootcamps are employer-centric, so think about that all the way through. Training is free to learners, that we talked about, but employers have to contribute towards the cost per learner. When you sign your courses, make sure they're no longer than 16 weeks and a minimum of 60 guided learning hours. Applications should be well evidenced. So yeah, that's really important. Whenever you're kind of stating something in there, kind of make sure you're kind of backing up with evidence, with the need really identified. So that's it. We really want to see, that you've recognised the skills need in our region, and that's really clearly articulated in your bid. Applications do need to offer value for money. Yet do consider, when you're thinking about that, how much that employer is going to have to, how much that equates to for that employer who's paying the 10% or 30%. We expect your applications to demonstrate impact to learnings from previous skills bootcamps you've delivered, or other similar provision that you may have delivered. As I said, you'll be required to submit letters of support for those employers that you state, that you list in your application. So, you've got a month. We will be opening for a month from today. So but obviously that can take a while to get those in. So probably one of the earliest things you probably need to be doing. Learner support is absolutely vital. So there's quite a lot of questions around that in the application. So do think about that. And there's a note on there about not underestimating the administrative process. So when you are costing how much it's going to cost to deliver this as a project, you just think about the sort of admin side of it. We've obviously got the returns that need to happen through the ILR. There'll be summed up supplementary data we need from you. We need kind of highlight reports monthly. So it's kind of, and obviously all the sort of onboarding of people, and we just kind of remind people to kind of think about that carefully when costing your project. Okay, next. Okay, so timeline-wise, we will open today officially at 12, but like I said, there could be a bit of a delay till it's more likely the paperwork will be on there at 5 o'clock today. We will close on the 28th of April, so that's noon on the 28th of April. That will also be written on our webpage. Once we close for applications, we then start assessing them. That would take to around the 9th of May for that process to complete. We may have to go out for clarifications. It's something we can do. So we expect that process of clarifications to complete around the 19th of May. As you imagine, like with governance processes, recommendations have to go through a series of different areas to look at and consider before they even get to the final approval stage. So the final approval stage will be around the 6th of June. And on that day, we will then issue you a decision notice to let you know if you've been successful. If you are successful, your actual grant offer letter won't come till 3 weeks later. So if but you'll know sort of 3 weeks before that it's been approved or not approved. So obviously start your planning and start things going. But the actual grant offer letter always takes a little bit of time because it has to go through sort of signing and sealing and things internally. There's a link to our website on there. Sherry, if you could pop the link also in the chat, that'd be great. So everyone has got that and can kind of start looking this afternoon for those documents to go on there. Okay, yeah, and one thing I also wanted to mention, some of you may have attended this, but when we did call one earlier in the month, we ran a session about it's like a tools and tips webinar on applying for the funding. We're not going to be repeating that session, but there is a recording of it on that web page, so do go on there and watch the recordings. It goes into a lot more detail than I've given you today, and it will talk you through the questions and tips from how to write a good application. So yeah, I do encourage you to watch that video. And again, that is already on our website, actually, that one. And that's it. So it's just any questions. So we'll have a look at what's been already added to the chat, but yeah, feel free to add any more questions in, and Sherry and I will go through them. Okay,
so the first question is, appreciate that the minimum is 60 guided learning hours. Can this be delivered over 2 weeks? Will this impact when payment milestones?
So talking about sort of 2 weeks intensive almost. I've seen that's what that question means. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. If that's kind of works, you can do that. We've had courses that have, delivered the whole thing over 2 weeks, and that's absolutely fine. It wouldn't really impact the I mean, you just wouldn't receive any. I think you'd almost receive the first and second payment probably at the same time, because it is still that 14 days from day one. So you'd almost your learners would complete the training at the point you apply for that first payment. That's all that would happen.
And that's the only question.
It's the only question. Has anybody got anything else? I mean,
hold on, there's another. Does the qualification need to be accredited?
No. So the good thing about Skills Bootcamps is they can be accredited or non-accredited. So obviously, which is the nice thing about bootcamps, when you're working with an employer and you're trying to create something really bespoke for them, it doesn't always work, that accreditation side of it. So yeah, it can be non-accredited. It does have to align with a recognised framework. If you read the application paperwork later on, it goes into a bit more detail around that.
The next one is, do ITPs need to submit ILRs, or is this done by the MCA?
Yeah, so everyone needs to submit their ILR themselves. It won't be done by the MCA. But as I said earlier, we do recognise this. I mean, it's a new process for us on our Skills Bootcamps team. We do, obviously, our Adult Skills Fund already use it, but yeah, we're all learning. We're writing some really comprehensive training material at the moment. A couple of our lovely providers are testing it for us, and yeah, and if you're not used to using it, we will very much support you in getting onto it. And yeah, so don't worry too much.
And that is it. Joe Trendle says, delighted to see hospitality. Oh, are BACS payments made on the 15th working day of the month?
So how it works is you'll see your ILR return will come in on the ILR return date. There will definitely be some supplementary data that we're going to need. So that'll be sort of only a short spreadsheet of data that you'll send to us separately. What we do for each provider is set up a Teams channel that's just between us and you, and the only people that have access are like people in our team and yourselves. So on that same day that you submit your learner data through ILR, you'll fill in this bit of extra data we need from you, mainly employers, because the ILR doesn't seem to support that. So we'll ask you for some, to fill that in. You'll also be asked on that day to sort of fill out a progress report for us. We'll look at all of that, and you'll also will be asked for some evidence. Eventually we move into kind of a sampling thing on evidence, but initially you'll be asked to upload evidence to support your claim. So that things like for milestone 1, which is that sort of they've been on course for 14 days, we'll ask for a copy of a signed register, or copies of enrolment forms. So we get all of that in, we check it all. If everything's right, then you will then you'll get an email from us saying, your claim has been verified. But it still can take sort of, we say, I think, our internal SLA is 30 days from receipt of the valid claim. It will actually, I think in the grant offer letter, it may sit a little bit longer than that, but it is, you can expect sort of to wait up to a month before that payment comes in. It's just because of the scale and the volume of what's being processed. So do think about that in terms of your kind of planning, that it is in arrears, and it can, you're looking at sort of a month before that payment is in your account.
The next part of the question is, are you using data sheets for Wave 6? We have another Skills Bootcamp contract and they are moving away from data sheets. This is why we are asking.
Yes, there's no data sheets for Wave 6. The DFE don't need those anymore, but the DFE just need the ILR return. The only thing we will have is we've recognised the need to, for our own purposes, to collect a bit of extra data that the ILR isn't at the moment collecting. We will continue to work with the ILR team, to make sure, see if they can kind of, any changes to incorporate these things. At the moment, there's a few bits it isn't capturing, which we will ask you to capture separately for us. But it will be minimal, so we obviously don't want to kind of, we don't really want you to, in an ideal world, you've only completed, only would have had to complete the ILR, but it is only a small amount of extra data we're going to ask you to complete on a data sheet which is designed by us. So that won't be going to the DFE. That's for our purposes.
Okay, that's it with the questions.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. If you do, any questions asked today, we will add to our FAQ document that's already on our website with the responses. If you do have any questions, and you will do as you start reading it and looking into it, that's when you'll start to get those questions. So do drop us an email with any questions, Cherry. If you just pop the email address into the chat, that'd be great. That is also on our website anyway, but then we will kind of get back to you with any answers. And again, we'll just make sure we sort of add those to the FAQ so everyone has sight of them. Was there a late question on there, or was that?
Will a list of interested organisations' key contacts be shared to encourage partnership working?
Will a list of interested organisations' key contacts be shared to encourage partnership working? I mean, that's probably one for you, Sherry, on how that works when you get employers contact you.
Yeah, I mean, if you are looking for any specific partnerships, then please do let me know. But as Brian has just said, that what I tend to do is, if I get employers approach me and we know that there's a number of providers, training providers that can support that that employer, then I will actually message that out to all providers that I'm aware of that are interested. Obviously, we don't favour anyone in particular. We keep it as transparent as possible. But at present, that's how we work. If you can let me know what kind of partnerships you're looking for, if you want to have a meeting with me to discuss that further, then please do drop me an email. I'll put my own email in the chat now. But yeah, that's we work really hard to kind of encourage that partnership working. Also run events throughout the year facilitated networking for the purpose of doing that as well. So, and we do have some more employer events in our plans for the next year. Obviously, that will be more towards wave 7 now. But if anybody does come up, then like I say, I do make those introductions. On the chat, you know, there's people like Catherine Davis, who's from CEO of Visit West, is happy to talk to anyone about visitor economy partnerships. And I know Rob Hazelton at Partners in Bristol is always happy to talk to a variety of different people regarding partnerships, maybe looking at larger training providers supporting smaller training providers through subcontract arrangements. So, but then lots of the colleges and universities are open to that that kind of working partnership as well. So, like I said, if you've got any, if you want to express any interest in that, then please do let me know.
I think that's all the questions, isn't it, Sherry? I'm just having a look through
It
as well. So yeah, thank you. Sorry,
I'm just typing as I'm talking as well, which is no good.
So thank you everyone for your time today. Yeah, like I said, do just email in any questions, and fingers crossed the paperwork will be on our website very shortly, if not by 5. And I think it's true. I said to Sherry that so we can get a note out, can't we, if there for any reason it was to be delayed because of this technical issue. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone.